Okay, now we're going to look at the concept of a profile page for an external content type. So a profile page allows you to fire up an ASPX page and automatically display the values that are exposed in the external content type. So we're going to start from scratch here, and what we've got down here is the first thing we're going to do is open up our site, and I'll be pausing off and on. So we're home on the BI Center, and we're going to edit this in SharePoint Designer. And we're going to create some content types. So I'm going to go into external content type. And there's my employees. I'm going to create a new external content type, and I'm going to call this new external content type student orders. And generic list is fine, and I need to discover that. I don't need demo anymore, so let's go through and delete that out. And we'll add a connection, and it's going to be in the SQL, of course. And we'll say OK, and database server, let me fill this out and pause it. And I'm connecting into my server, Mathino Group member server, Mathino Group student with my identity. Okay, for some weird reason that wouldn't connect, so I just came in and just changed it, and I'm calling it student database down here. So I'll expand out the tables. We've done all this before, but I just want to do it slightly differently here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take orders down here. I'm going to right click that, and I'm going to select a new read item operation, and an operation name, this is fine. And down here we have order ID, and that's my identifier, order ID. This is a very important thing that we have up in here. So order ID is fine, display name, and I don't care about a default value in here, or I can come down there and I could set one up. And we don't care about that, so we're just going to come through and say next. And again, map to identifier, order ID, or order ID, that sounds fine. This is the information it's going to display. And we'll come through and say finish, but we don't have enough. So again, we'll go down here on orders, and we're going to create a read list item. This will bring back the individual items, and this will give us the ability to come through and actually read the list. And everything's the same as before. Map to identifier, order ID is of type system int 32, and that will finish. And now I have this data type, and let's go through and save it. Okay, now in order to make that work, we've got to configure some things. So I'm over in Central Administration, and I'm going to go into Manage Service Applications, and I want to go into the BDC service. All right, and as you see, there's my new database that I just, or my new external content type that I just brought on down. And what you have to do up here is this configure. We're going to come through and configure, and we need to enter a site. And I've already got one set up here, but I'm going to delete that out because I want to show you what I did there. So I'm going to cancel out of that, and we have to come through and we have to create a site that will hold these ASPX pages that we're creating. So again, if we go over to Central Administration and we go into Create Site Collections, I'm going to go ahead and do this and create a new site up in here. I'm going to change this down into the Sites collection, and I'm going to call this Profile Pages. Sounds fine, and I'll give it a title, Profile Pages. Sounds fine. I could create this in a new site collection. As a matter of fact, you might want to take a look at doing that, but whatever, at least a new site. So collaboration down here, and a blank site's the way to go, because this is really just doing hardly anything. It's just doing some displays for us. Later on, if I remember, I'll come through and show you how to configure search for it. So down here on blank site, we're going to give a name. Student is super user, and then you should always give it a backup domain, controller, but whatever. And we'll say OK, and I'll pause. And it's created. Let's test it, because we don't trust it, because this is not our first rodeo. So here we have the Profile Pages site. Now while we're at it, let's make this a little more useful. So I'm going to go in Site Actions, and I'm going to go Edit in SharePoint Designer. All right, and now that site is up in SharePoint Designer. Let's go into External Content Types, so it queries the server. And we're going to go Student Orders. Oh, good grief. That's not what I wanted. External Content Type. Click off of there, and I want to create an external list. And I'm going to name it, just so I can see it, and we'll say OK. Cool, now let's return over to our site. And here's my externals list, and if I click it, the green spiral of death, and here's everything coming on back. All right, now let's go through and set up the profile page. So this is the site I want to use. I'm going to copy the URL, Control C. Let's switch back over to Central Admin, and we'll go into, again, the Central Administration. We're going to go into Manage Service Applications, and we're going to go into the BDC Service. And now we'll click Configure, and we'll paste in, well, we'll dump this out, and paste in what the site we just created. We're going to dump out the ASPX page. Sites, profile pages, looks fine to me, and I'll say OK. All right, now I've got it. Okay, from this point, I could either use Central Admin to go through and create the profile page, or I could do it over in SharePoint Designer. But as we're over here in Central Admin, I'm going to just select Student Orders, and I'm going to click Create. Blah, 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 blah. What this really says is it's going to create a new action, all right, View Profile, and it'll point into the site, and we're going to say OK. Profile page was created, and here she is. And if I right-click that and say Open a New Window, it should error. And it does. It gives you this blah, blah, blah stuff, which if you spend 7 or 8 years trying to figure out what's wrong, what you'll come up to there is, you see that identifier in here at 0? We're going to change that out. That's actually the issue. So if I change it out to like 15 without the curly braces, bang. See, all the profile page now retrieves all of this information. Okay, and we can go through and we could further design this and add, modify this page, which I probably would suggest doing so that we could pass in order IDs and bring that information on across. But now you've got yourself a profile page. Okay, just to show you something a little different up in here, if you see this URL, down here I created one in the Sites collection off of profile pages, and here I just created another one up here, and this is also off of 80 in the Sites collection, and I'll fire that up and we get the same thing. And again, if I change my query string, and it returns back these employees ID, and I bring back all that information. Any of that I didn't want to have returned back when I was originally creating this, in SharePoint Designer, when I came through and created the external content types and student orders, operation design view, and operation order read. All right, if I didn't want to return something in here, I would go through, and I screwed that up. Initially create it. Here we go. So I don't want to bring back, and I would come through, whatever I didn't want to bring back, I would just delete those on out and cancel. Very good. So there's your profile page. So remember, what you need to do is you do need to configure over in Central Administration. All right. Well, first off, you need a subsite. So if we go over and we take a look at Central Administration, if I can get that up and show it to you. Why don't we do this? Favorites, Central Admin. There we go. In Central Administration, you need to come through and configure Business Data Connectivity Services and configure this up here. And on that configure, you need a website. So you'll come through and create a website, create a blank website. It can be a standalone site or sub-site, whatever you want to do in there. One thing though, the site that you create must be associated with this service application, which you could have multiple service applications. So the site that you create has got to be associated with this BDC service in here, right? So in your site associations. So then you go through, you create the site, make sure she's associated in here, then go on over, create the content types and generate the page. And remember, when you generate the page, you come through and you get this really irritating little error up in here. That's just your query string. You got to come through and you can add other web parts to configure that.